Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to talk about the movies. Welcome to episode 16 of the Movie Podcast. I am Sky Jitani. Joining me is Josh Lindsay.
Hello, everybody.
How are you, Josh?
I'm great. How are you?
Jason Rugg is over here on the computer.
What's up?
Oh, nice. What's up? Okay. So it's been a little while since we've been together, and spring break has come and gone.
You went away.
I went away, kind of. I mean, we drove to the Smoky Mountains for a couple days.
All right.
I don't consider that away.
Oh, well, we stayed. We moved.
Yeah,
so.
you guys are... You're in the midst of chaos with switching houses and all that.
That's right.
But in the midst of all that, we did get to see some movies.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so we're going to talk about those. But if you're new to the podcast, let me explain how this works. We kind of have a matrimony theme where we talk about something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. And each of those categories will become clear as we proceed through them. So, Josh, we're going to begin with something old. This is where we talk about a movie from the past that we want to make our audience reconsider, think about again, review. What did you see recently, or what do you want to talk about?
Okay, so I think I'm breaking the something old criteria. What was the year we said? Did we say?
I think
2000?
Yeah, I think it had
Okay.
to be a 20th century film.
All right. Well, this is the oldest film that I've seen lately, so I'm going to break the rules today. But I love this movie, Cinderella Man.
Cinderella Man.
Russell Crowe.
I never saw it.
What?
I never saw it.
Oh my goodness! One of my all-time favorites. So Russell Crowe plays James Braddock, who was a boxer back during the Great Depression.
Okay.
And he became famous. He was like a comeback boxer. Like he had a career, he was doing great, and then something took him out, but then he had a comeback.
That's every boxing movie that's ever been made.
But what's so special about this one is he's a father. He's married to the character's played by Renee Zellweger.
Uh-huh.
They have 3 awesome little kids.
Bridget Jones.
Bridget Jones, that's
Yeah.
right. And him as a, once again, I feel like I bring up the whole father stuff a lot, but I really have good daddy issues, all right? I don't have any bad ones. They're all good. But anyway, I guess they're issues. Anyway, he is such a role model. Like he's famous. One of the things he's famous for was when he was going through the Great Depression and they were giving out money, assistance to people who didn't have work. When he came back and he earned the money, he got back in line. I guess it's basically the unemployment, and he returned the money to the government.
Oh.
So he became famous for that.
So conservatives love this
They
movie.
do love it. Oh, yeah. It's Ron Howard. It's very, yeah.
I'm not a welfare recipient. I don't need to be given a handout.
That's right. But he became famous for that. His example as a father, there's just some really sweet moments.
And what year did this come out?
2005.
Oh, yeah, okay. So that's 12 years old.
Good. Well, old enough for me. So
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well.
But I will say I played it for my kids. It's PG-13, just some swearing, there's boxing violence. But the thing that bothered my 10-year-old son the most, I realized later, he was asking me questions about, could I lose my job? Would we get assistance from the government? So I had to, it's all right. We're not have to worry about that. So.
Yeah, we're not Mexican, son. We'll be fine.
Oh, Jesus. I did not say that.
I'm just saying. Okay, so you violated the old thing a little bit. I'm going to violate it a little bit too,
right.
but not in the timeline. So I'm violating it because I actually want to recommend 2 movies. They're both from 1995, so on that level, it qualifies.
Yeah,
but I'll tell you what the 2 movies are, and then you tell me if you can figure out what the link between the 2 is. Okay.
Oh, it's a game.
Yeah. The first one is Toy Story.
Okay.
The original Pixar feature-length CGI Toy Story movie.
95.
95, yeah. And the second movie is Casino.
Is it?
A Scorsese film with Robert De Niro about the Vegas casino. Obviously.
I got it. It's the comedian.
What comedian?
The guy who just died.
Yes, Don Rickles.
Don Rickles, thank you.
Okay, so this is my throwback, nostalgic, something old in memory of Don Rickles, who was one of my favorites.
Oh, really?
Oh, my gosh. I mean, he was 90 years old. He passed away last week. And if you don't know who Don Rickles is, look him up on YouTube, Best of Don Rickles, whatever. He was probably the greatest talk show guest in history. He was kind of discovered or made famous by Frank Sinatra, and he ran with all the mobsters, and he was an insult comic, but did Vegas for a long time, and was always on Johnny Carson and Letterman and all the current talk show hosts and all that. But just this little Jewish guy from New York who was hysterically funny at insulting everybody, and nothing was off limits.
Yeah.
But he was the voice of Mr. Potato Head in all the Toy Story movies. and he was in a very different role. He was a pit boss or some kind of casino boss in Casino with Robert De Niro, and he did a lot of old films back in the 50s and 60s. He did a lot of the beach movies with Annette Pacello, whatever her name was.
Is he like a bit part? Like
yeah, bit part. Yeah, I mean, he's been in a lot of movies in those little bit parts where he's just there to insult people, and he rarely, if ever, stays on script. In Casino, he has a very different role. He's not funny, really, but it kind of highlights the fact that he knew from the inside what it was like to work with all the mobsters in Vegas in real life, and he kind of brought that into that movie. But Don Rickles was just one of my favorites, and honestly, there are a handful of things when I'm really kind of down in the dumps. There are a handful of things that I will look at on YouTube to kind of lift my spirits.
And he's one of them?
He's one of them. And so
nothing better hearing someone get ripped by a funny
but
comedian,
he's so funny, and the kind of endearing thing is when he's on these talk shows or when he's doing stand up, he was an act at Ronald Reagan's inauguration, like not the actual inauguration, but the balls and galas afterwards. He'll do, and he picks out people in the audience and just destroys them, and it's really funny. But at the end of his acts, he gets serious and he gets really sentimental and very affirming, and you can just tell there's a sweetness to this guy. Anyway, I just adored the little guy. I thought I
had no idea you knew so much about this guy.
I love Don Rickles. I don't know if it goes back to my childhood in the 80s and watching him on some of those talk shows, or my dad rolling off the sofa laughing so
that
hard.
Might be it. Well, the news is that they haven't recorded Toy Story 4 yet, and he just passed, and so they don't have him on recording for the next movie.
Oh, yeah. That's a problem for Mr. Potato Head.
That's right. Let's see what happens.
Okay. Well, anyway, those are my recommendations. Just in tribute to Don Rickles. If you can't watch Toy Story or Casino for time or moral reasons, I recommend that you just look them up on YouTube.
Toy Story in particular.
Yes, Toy Story. I don't believe in inter-toy relationships. Right. Okay, something new. Josh, do you want to introduce the movie that we will review that's fairly new?
Yes, it's the 2017 live-action remake of Beauty and the Beast.
Right, just following in Disney's now ongoing quest to remake all of their classic movies.
They have 22 remakes in the works.
Seriously,
right now.
Is it that many?
I got them listed here. We can go over them if you want, but yes.
So up to this point, they've done Cinderella, Jungle Book. What else have they done?
Maleficent.
Yeah, that was kind of a spin-off.
Yeah, they did
thing.
It. Well, yeah, they just did the bad guy story of it. So.
And now Beauty and the Beast. Is there something I'm missing that they've redone?
Probably. I can't think of what it is.
Okay. Okay,
Jason?
so what?
They did Cinderella.
Yeah.
We'll just look it up. We'll find it. But
this is Jungle Book, Cinderella.
Jungle Book's on the way.
I think
done.
Cinderella was popular and it did well, and then Jungle Book, I think, killed it in terms of the box office.
Right.
Oh, sorry, I need to lean the mic. All right.
That's why you're here.
Thank you, Jason. But anyway, so Beauty and the Beast. What's the girl's name? Emma Watson.
Yeah.
Stars as Belle, and then Dan
Stevens, who's
Downton Abbey.
Yeah, Downton Abbey. Matthew.
Oh, Pete's
Matthew
Dragon.
Crawley. Pete's Dragon. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I like Pete's Dragon.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, so what's your proposal for Beauty and the Beast?
All right, I spent a lot of time thinking about it, and I just had to settle on this. I said I propose that Beauty and the Beast as a remake delivers.
That's short, sweet, to the point. Okay.
There's so much I can nitpick about this movie, and I think we should. But
and we will.
Yeah. When I saw it with my wife and kids, which that's kind of a rare thing. It's rare that all of us go to a movie.
Yeah.
So we all saw it together. We all walked out of there enjoying it.
Yeah.
We all laughed. We all got teary-eyed. We all had fun. We knew exactly what was going to happen, but we all enjoyed it, and we were all in a good mood. And we're like, oh, that was good. You know, it was like it did what it was supposed to do, and we were happy with it. I don't know that I ever need to see it again, but
yeah.
I would sit down and watch the animated one before I'd watch the live-action one.
That's the key thing here. So my proposal, slightly longer, but it's this. The remake of Beauty and the Beast reveals what is both good and bad about our culture's addiction to nostalgia.
Oh, man.
Okay, so
let's talk about that.
So I very much like you, I came out of the movie going, that was good. Like, it was a well-made movie. They didn't screw it up. Well acted. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. But also like you, I came out going, I really never need to see that again. I would much rather go back and watch the original animated version. And so for me, I felt like this didn't need to be remade. It's one of the greatest animated movies ever. It was, I think to this day, it's the only animated movie that's ever been nominated for a Best Picture Oscar. Because now they have a category for animated movie.
Outside of the...
Right, but originally there was no category for animated, best animated feature, whatever. And Beauty and the Beast was up there. I don't know what else was nominated back in 91, 92 when it came out. But, I mean, it's such a perfectly made movie. The music by Alan Menken and whoever else did it. I mean, it's beautiful, phenomenal music. And they added some new songs to this new version, and you could tell immediately they were new songs, not because you knew all the old ones, but they just didn't fit. They didn't have the same energy of the original music. And I just felt like it so copied almost every beat of the original animated movie that it makes you realize certain stories are just best told through certain medium. Like animation is unique in its way to tell a story. Mm-hmm. So the scene I'm thinking of was the Be Our Guest song, where all the household items are dancing and singing and have this whole cabaret number for Belle. And you go, okay, that worked when it was animated, and pretty much what I just saw again was the animated thing, but now they just made everything look more realistic.
Right.
And it didn't have to be. I don't know if this is making any sense.
Like you think as a whole it just shouldn't have been made, or that particular scene just didn't work as real life looking silverware?
Like I said, it was well done. I wasn't upset about the movie in any way, but I just kind of felt like this worked so well as an animated movie. Why did they have to make?
Yeah, I mean, when you're watching a candlestick and a clock talk, but when they're animated, they got big eyes.
Right, exactly.
Like that's fun. When you're watching a real looking candlestick try and talk to a real looking clock,
right.
It was clever. But it was kind of lifeless, you know.
Right.
It was like just was like, all right.
Well, and I'm thinking back to Jungle Book, where obviously another Disney classic animated, and they remade it, and all the animals in the remade version are photorealistic animals, right? And you go, okay, well, these are animal characters, and it's interesting to kind of see it in a real jungle sort of setting, and it's a little bit embellished here and there with the giant orangutan and stuff, but it worked, right? Mm-hmm. And I just felt like, well, you're right. When you're dealing with clocks and candlesticks and cupboards and ottomans, you're kind of like,
it's tough.
It's tough. It's really tough.
But get back to the nostalgia part.
Yeah. So I didn't have time this morning to prep for this, but there's this quote that I used in a sermon not long ago from Frank Zappa, where he talks about how the world is going to end in one of two ways: either paperwork or nostalgia. And
this is Frank Zappa, the songwriter.
Yeah. And so he's talking about nostalgia and how he feels like every year, an event happens, and then there's a span of time before you start getting nostalgic about that event.
Okay.
Right? And you start, doing things to kind of relive the event and all that. And his argument is that every year that gap between the event and nostalgia for the event is getting smaller, shorter and shorter and shorter.
Oh, I gotcha.
Okay, so it's been 25 years since the original Beauty and the Beast movie came out. Mm-hmm. And it's not like going back to another one of my favorite movies, the original Richard Donner Superman movie, right? That came out in 1978. And you go back and watch that, and it's like 1978, right? It's New York in 1978, and there's actors and there's sets and all that. And you go, okay, that's totally nice. Maybe we should update this for new generation. When you go back and watch Beauty and the Beast, the animated movie, it's timeless, right? Because it's set in some cartoon France, some distant time ago, and it doesn't look dated in that regard. Now, you could say, well, maybe they should do it in 3D animation now or CGI animation now. Okay, maybe, but it didn't need to be updated for. Well,
wouldn't the argument be that, like my kids, well, I guess
they can watch it.
Well, I know.
They can watch it.
But
so that's what I mean. The reason it was re-released is twofold. One was nostalgia.
Yeah.
It was just, we want to take what we loved from 25 years ago and we want to do it again.
Yeah.
And two, it was re-released to make a heck of a lot of money.
True.
So... And part of it, I go, this was a good movie, and I'm glad that more people are going to be exposed to it, and it was well made, and that's the good side of the nostalgia piece. The bad side of the nostalgia piece was, in some way, I actually think they diminished the greatness of the original by remaking it.
They diminished the greatness by remaking it.
Yeah, because now, when you go to search on whatever streaming video system to watch Beauty and the Beast, you're going to see the original animated one right next to the new live action one, and you're going to go, oh, what should I do? And I'm like, go for the old one. You got to go for the old one. That's the better one. I mean, again, this one's not bad, but it didn't grab me the way the original one did. I don't know if it's just because of my stage of life or what, but it was fine. It was good. It was well made. I just didn't.
Well, there's also nothing surprising about it.
That's true.
We knew exactly what was going to happen, so that's a part of it.
And it felt a little bit like toward the end when all the townspeople are attacking the castle. It didn't feel big. It didn't feel grand. There weren't a lot of characters. It wasn't like they had crowds. It was a small little, almost like a stage performance.
Yeah. I will say this, to me, going to the movies is an experience.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't have the chance to go see it in the theaters, I would probably be less likely to ever see this film.
Right.
But, to get in the car and buy the tickets and, do we get our seats and everyone gets there and the kids are begging for food, it's an experience, right? Mm-hmm. And then we watch it in the dark and no one can go anywhere. Different than watching a movie in your house, right? And so to me, going to the movies is an experience just like going to a play or something like that. Mm-hmm. And this was just another version of it. And so that's why I think it worked for me. But I agree with everything you're saying.
Well, maybe I would propose it this way or say it this way. Again, a good movie, but in a twist of irony, I feel like the live action movie was more two-dimensional than the original animated version, which had more depth and...
a good example of that would be The Beast. I mean,
yes.
He was much more interesting in the cartoon than he was in... I almost wish they would have made a Jim Henson type costume for The Beast versus all CG, because that would have had more warmth to it, versus this realistic type beast that was, that had no... Except for his voice, there really wasn't much to him.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was fine with it. I didn't love it. It didn't grab me the way the original one did. I don't have any...
Well, of the upcoming...
what's on the slate for their live-action remakes?
Well, you mentioned Dumbo before.
Oh, yeah.
But they've got Aladdin, Mulan, The Little Mermaid, Pinocchio, which Robert Downey Jr. is Geppetto.
Seriously?
Yep. The Lion King, which is Jon Favreau.
Yeah, he did Jungle Book.
So he's doing The Lion King.
Yeah.
And they're going to have James Earl Jones as the voice again of the king. Cruella de Vil, Sword in the Stone, Prince Charming, Tinkerbell, Peter Pan, Winnie the Pooh, Snow White, and they're filming Mary Poppins right now.
Yeah.
And this is not a remake, but they're making the Jungle Cruise.
I heard that
into a movie.
with The Rock.
The Rock.
So I don't know. I mean, part of me grieves because Disney historically has been the source of so many great original stories. I mean, they took old fairy tales and things like that, but where's the originality anymore?
Well, that's true. But here's the thing, and going back to the whole nostalgia thing, like Aladdin was one of my all-time favorites. Mm-hmm. Like that was, I remember being in high school and like, this is magical, I was like, anyway, I won't get into my high school years, but it holds a place in that time of my life. Mm-hmm. And so to hear that they're remaking it, I know it'll never live up to the original.
Yeah.
But I want to go see it in the theaters when it comes out.
Well, and there it is. That's the good and the bad of our addiction and nostalgia.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I want to go see it, but it's never going to be as good as it was.
Right.
So I have a mixed feeling about that. So
we keep going back to the trough. I don't know how to stop. So
well, I don't know.
I was recently reading something about how Disney and Marvel have stopped taking risks.
Yes.
About everything.
Yeah.
Even in like their musical scoring and everything, it's just there's no risk. It's like this
it's
is
a formula.
safe, this is where we live.
Right.
And it's like no risk isn't memorable.
Well, and that's what makes me curious about Pixar, right? Because they're Disney, but they got some really weird stuff coming down.
Well, they've got Coco, which is I think it takes place in Mexico, and it has to do with the whole Day of the Dead.
Right. Well, the boy goes back to the city of the dead. I mean, it's going to freak out Christians like no one's business. It's going to be about necromancy and things like that.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the original, like I was talking to Jason. This is not a movie, but S-Town. Have you heard of S-Town, the podcast?
No.
You know the podcast Serial?
Yeah.
Okay. So talk about original. It's not a movie, it's a podcast, and I only bring it up because someone will probably turn this into a movie or a television series. But it's about a murder or a supposed murder that was unsolved, and so a guy in Nowhere, Alabama gets a guy from This American Life to come down and investigate it. And the stuff you encounter on this journey is crazy.
Okay.
And it's documentary-ish, it's real people and that kind of stuff. This American Lifestyle, serial style podcast, fascinating. You can't find this stuff, not in the movies right now anyway. But anyway, I think it's okay. I mean, I think things are cyclical. It'll be maybe, the same old for a while with some of the movies, but you can still find originality other places.
Yeah, you're right. You can't find originality in other places. I just wish that cinema, which is such a fantastic, culturally shaping medium, had some of that originality.
Well, it's out there.
It's out there. Okay, so one other aspect of this film that we need to talk about was the whole controversy about LeFou, who is played by Josh Gad, and is gay. Apparently is gay.
Shocker! Is that a spoiler?
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah. So some Christians, I don't think a lot, but some Christians were upset about this and boycotted the film, and they made us think about it in Twitterverse and media and things like that.
Countries refused to air it.
Really? Whole countries?
Yeah.
What?
Well, Malaysia demanded that they remove the scene.
Yeah.
And then I think in China they had to cut it out.
Okay, so obviously I knew about this controversy before I went into the movie, so my gaydar was on. I was looking for the gay lobby agenda to be shoved down my throat in this movie so I could talk about it on this podcast. And to be honest with you, I didn't get it. I mean, I think I may have glimpsed one tiny little thing at the very, very end.
Yeah.
But I didn't get it. I think a lot of adults, forget children, will go through that whole movie and never pick up on the fact that this character is gay.
Right.
So did you see it really?
Well, unfortunately,
blatantly?
I knew about the so-called controversy. So I was on the edge. Anytime he was on screen, I was waiting for that moment.
Right.
And then when it happened, I was still like, okay, when's it coming? And then the movie was over, and I'm like, wait.
Yeah, that's exactly.
I missed it.
Yeah.
But I just think, and I almost wonder, because I don't know, where did it come from? Where did this news of his character originate? Because,
I think it was an interview with the director.
About having a gay character in there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious because, bad press is still good press, right? We're it got a lot of attention in certain circles because of this, right? And who cares that a few people are going to boycott it? It probably got more views because of it, So, it wasn't. We didn't have any discussions with the kids afterwards because there was nothing to discuss,
Yeah, I think we talked about it. I don't know if it was on this podcast or Phil's podcast, but we were talking about this controversy, and I kind of sympathize with people who were upset because you take your family to a movie like this, young kids, and the last thing you want to do is have to have a conversation with your kids afterwards about homosexuality. If you as a parent or they as children are not ready to have that conversation, you don't expect to go to a Disney film and have that conversation thrust upon you. So I can understand why people are upset. But then I watch this movie, I'm going, I could barely pick out the fact that this is a gay character.
Right.
I mean, so I don't think any kid's going away, Mom, Dad, why was LeFou? It's just not going to happen.
Right.
So I thought it was a non-issue.
So in terms of the borrowed segment of our conversation, did you read in the articles I sent you?
I did not have time this morning.
That's
I apologize.
Fine. That's fine. No. Well, one of them was about the controversy.
Okay. So is this our borrowed?
Let's transition, yeah.
Borrowed, if you don't know, is when we take an article or some content from somewhere else that relates to our podcast and discuss that. So we're borrowing it.
So the article was just the hypocrisy of there was a slight hint of homosexuality, but there was attempted murder, shooting,
bestiality.
Right. Hey, well, yeah. They didn't mention that, but yes.
Yeah.
And so it was just the hypocrisy of it all, and he got more into it. I read it briefly last night, but I think there is a level of, and I was trying to weigh this out in my mind of the guy's point where he's saying people get so upset that there's a character who's gay, but they're fine bringing their kids to a movie that has violence in it. Mm-hmm. And there's some truth to that in it for me anyway.
So selective outrage.
Right. Yeah. And I took after reading about I felt okay bringing the kids to the movie because I just read about it and it seemed like it seemed harmless to me, based on what I wasn't fearing any conversations with my 7-year-old about it afterwards because I was like, oh, it's not even going to come up, right? That was the case. But I really wondered or thought more about that, about why am I okay with violence and things like that. And I do know that when it comes to violence, I'm not convinced that if my kids see some violence, I don't want to excessive anything, but just some violence, that they're going to be violent. But I am concerned with just sexuality in general, whether it's heterosexual or homosexual, like certain things that are going to be impacting their lives, because I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old and going forward, that could have could influence their decisions and things like that. I think that's why parents are more attuned to that. Maybe their flag goes up more for that kind of stuff, where they're okay with the violence because they're not worried about their kid becoming a violent person, but how they think about sexuality, which would influence their life decisions as a teenager, maybe could honestly have negative impacts in their lives. So I think, to me, that's going in the back of their minds.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. We do, both culturally and just within the Christian subculture, tend to put violence and sexuality into very different categories. I think there are dangers to both, and I could spend all day talking about the differences, but you're right. There is, for me, violent movies, there's all different degrees of violence in video games and all that sort of thing. But the thing that worries me about violence, and I think I've shared this before, when I was a teenager or 20-something, I was far more, violence in movies did not bother me at all. Explicit sexual content bothered me in movies. And now I'm in my 40s, and I think it's kind of reversed. Like when there's some sexual relationship or explicit stuff, I'm like, whatever. It doesn't. I'm then not with my kids. I'm just saying personally.
Right.
What really bothers me is the violence. And like that hits me in a way it didn't 20 years ago. I can't explain exactly why. Maybe it's hormonal, but. Yeah, I said that. But what worries me about the violent stuff is not that I think my kids are going to turn around and suddenly be, brutal, violent people. It's how is the cumulative effect of the violence in our media degrading in their minds the value of human life?
Yeah.
Right? And not just the taking of human life, but the lack of compassion toward human life, the lack of empathy toward human life, the lack of Christian charity towards people's lives. All of that gets kind of erased the more and more they see just violence.
My son, who's 10, he wants to play games that his friends supposedly play, like Call of Duty or like pretty violent type games that have a rating of mature and so on. And he wants to know, like, well, Dad, you let me watch some movies that have violence in them, but why don't you let me do this? Which is basically the same. And my point was, I don't want you doing it over and over and over and over again. There's stories with violence in them are fine, but we can't be looking at this every day and thinking about it, poring over it, and at school, thinking about, okay, I'm gonna go back. I got to get with my buddies to.
Yeah, and I do think video games have a different. And I haven't done the research on this. I've read a little, but there's something different about passively sitting back and watching a war movie, and actually sitting there with a video game and directing the soldier to do something,
right?
Right? There's a volition in it and an engagement of the will, which is different. And secondly, when violence, at least in the movies I appreciate, when violence is used in a film to tell a story, it's usually, the violence is not the point of the story. It's usually there to move a narrative forward to some other, hopefully, moral or generative end. Whereas in a video game, the violence is the point.
Right.
That's just the whole point. So I think the role it plays and all. I mean, that's why we sometimes object when there is unnecessary nudity or sexuality thrown into a film that absolutely doesn't need to be there and for any meaningful reason, versus a relationship or some sexual element to a film that actually is critical to the story that they're trying to tell.
I will maybe to kind of tie this up, I will say the whole LeFou thing, adding that into the story didn't seem to add anything.
That's right. It was totally unnecessary.
Right.
Yeah.
Which was one thing that just me as someone who likes stories and movies, that bothered me more than anything. It's like, well, what was the point of doing this?
Right. It was clearly they're throwing a bone
Right.
to a contemporary audience that would hopefully reward them for it. Okay. Something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. This is where we share something briefly that either blew our minds or that blew chunks that we saw recently.
All right, I'm going to do another blue chunks.
All right. You're on a roll.
I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I'm a fan of Harry Potter. I guess you could say I read the first book. I think I've seen all the movies. I can only tell you what happened in the first movie, though. Anything else is beyond me. But when I saw the trailer for Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I was excited. I'm like, oh, there are a lot of elements of Harry Potter that I like, and we're going to get this, but we're going to get it without all the Harry Potter drama and the backstory and all these characters interwoven and just how it's convoluted and all these things. I thought it'd be a simple adventure story about these beasts. It'd be fascinating. It wasn't. It was long. It was convoluted. It was complicated. It was not about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It was not about that at all. Which made the movie boring, tiresome. It had 4 endings. I mean, every time you thought it ended, there was another ending. It just went on and on. And I was really disappointed at the end that it could have been a simple, fun adventure story about these beasts that came from the world of Harry Potter and had this funny character who let him out of his suitcase by accident. But no. Yes. And there were, they threw a bunch of social commentary type stuff in there, fine, whatever, but it felt like that was more of what it was trying to do than tell a good story.
Now, I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it, Jason? My understanding is it's the beginning of like a whole bunch of prequels.
Yeah, it's a new series.
It's a new series.
Which, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them is the name of the textbook that Eddie Redmayne's character writes,
Right.
and is then in Harry Potter. So
Right.
that's why they're trying to tie
Which
it back
they
in.
don't mention that
Yeah.
until the last line or maybe the last scene of the entire movie. Because there are no... I mean,
It's the setup.
There are
Very long
Fantastic
setup.
Beasts in the movie, but it has nothing to do with finding them. It's just like a couple of them get out and they wreak some havoc, but that's not the whole... There's all this other stuff going on what that movie is really about, and it was... bleh.
Prequels in general, we've had problems
Not all
with-
prequels.
Not all, but a lot have been problems. Okay, well, I'll keep that in mind if and when I see that movie.
Skip it.
Okay, so I have something. I have something that blew my mind. Actually, we just watched it today. You were tweeting about it, or you were tweeting about it. I forget who was tweeting about it. The new Thor trailer.
Oh, yeah.
The Thor Ragnarok trailer.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my gosh. Of the Marvel movies and series and characters, Thor is one of my least favorite. Like, I don't have a deep affinity for Thor.
He's got a funny hat.
He does have a funny hat and a hammer. It's like, come on. So don't play it yet. But anyway, it's a brief trailer, but a couple things.
Did you see the trailer?
I just saw a picture of it. No, I haven't seen the
Yeah,
trailer.
yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So, a couple things. Number one, they have this Led Zeppelin song track going with it. So it has a vibe like Guardians of the Galaxy.
It does. That's
right?
exactly what I thought. Yes.
Secondly, the title graphics are very 80s.
Yeah.
Right? Again, that nostalgic kind of 80s vibe thing going on. But oh my goodness, there's the Kate Blanchett as Hela, creepy as all get out.
Yep.
You got Thor with his haircut. I'm all about people who lose their hair. You've got the Incredible Hulk, that's just a hysterical moment when
Yeah.
they bring that in. You got Jeff Goldblum as the game master, or whatever his
Something like
name
that,
is.
yeah.
But the thing that excites me, Grandmaster, whatever. The thing that excites me about this is it's being directed by Taika Waititi, who's a Kiwi. He's a New Zealander. He's the guy who made What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
That vampire movie I'm all about. So I got a sense that this Thor movie is going to be a little different and maybe a little bit more Guardians of the Galaxy-ish in its vibe. And the trailer was fantastic.
It was fantastic. I was not a fan. I liked the first one. I was surprised.
Uh-huh.
I did not like the second one. I can't tell you. It was boring. I can't remember anything about it.
Right.
But yes, I'm excited about this one.
Yeah. So go check it out. Okay, that's our show for this week. We're glad that you're joining us and that you will interact with us online. Give us your thoughts, your comments on these movies. What did we do? We did the what's your boxing guy?
Cinderella.
Cinderella Man.
Cinderella Man.
Cinderella Man. Check it out.
Okay, Cinderella Man. Don Rickles and anything he's ever been in. Yeah, check him out. What did you think about Beauty and the Beast and the gay character? And was it really needed? Like, not just the gay character, but the whole movie. Avoid Fantastic Beasts.
I would.
And go check out the Thor Ragnarok YouTube trailer video thing. Thanks for joining us. This has been the Movie Proposal. You can now kiss this episode goodbye.
Hey, Ham, look, I'm Picasso.
I don't get it.
You uncultured swine. What are you looking at, you hockey puck?